Welcome back, everyone. There's a lot of stuff that I want to do in this video today. First thing I want to do though is I've decided that the leaves are nice and everything, but I think I can do a little bit better. So what I want to do is just go in and show you this nice little tool that I've actually found online, and it's a website called bootswatch.com. And what happens is that it gives you all these downloadable themes that you can actually put in. And the last time I made these videos, I think I went with superhero. I think that's the theme that I chose. It's just because I liked the colors to it. But this time around, I think what I'm going to do, because I've got a grocery store, right? So I've been looking through all of the different templates, and if you look at Minty, I don't see that as being something that would be all that great for a grocery store. Okay, my other consideration is I am going to keep the leaves, because at some point in the future I might switch those to snowflakes. But when I look at this one, this doesn't scream grocery store to me either. Now, everybody's going to have a different opinion, and that's why you would do a bunch of mock-ups for your client to select what they like the best. Here's another one here. I find this one to be just a little too masculine. Now, we are not making a well-known, highly branded and visible grocery store chain that is all throughout Canada. However, it does have some very distinct colors. And so what I think I am going to do is I think I'm going to go ahead and select this one. And this one's called United. Okay, and the way that I'm going to actually do this is I can go back out to here and you can see this download. But before I do that, I want to open up my Visual Studio, okay? And I want to actually navigate in here because I want to get the link to this. So what I've done is I've opened up our entire project file. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to navigate to www.root, okay, to lib, and I know you're probably thinking CSS, but it's a library. So lib, okay, Bootstrap, dist, okay, and now we go to this CSS. Okay, and what I want to do is I actually want to grab that link. So I'll highlight it, Control C. Okay, and now I'm going to go back out to my theme, and I want to I'm selecting the download. So the first one I'm going to pick is this bootstrap.min.css, and I'm going to download that. And it may actually, no, it doesn't give me where to save it to. So what's going to happen is I'll go back out to here and I'll go to desktop. I'm actually going to go to my downloads, and you can see that that's where that is. Okay, so I have this open in two places. I've got it here, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this into here, and it's going to ask me to replace the file in the destination. And yes, I'm going to replace that file. Now that was the bootstrap.min.css. Now I'm going to go back and just do bootstrap.css. Okay, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing. Go to my downloads, get this file. I'll do a copy. I could have probably dragged it too. In fact, I'll just drag it because I don't need to have it in two different places. So I'll drag that in here, and it's going to ask me to replace it, and I did. So now I'll close this all out. Okay, close that, and I'll go back to here, and I'm just going to do a save. Just for fun, I'm going to do a build. I don't have to, but I'm just going to do a rebuild. Okay, and when that's done, I'm going to actually go back out to my site, and it should update to a new theme. So initially this did not work. Actually, many of the colors were matching to what I already had. Now there was one big issue that I want to show you, is if you do use this, you have to understand that you can click over here on these codes. So I was in the navbar section, And when I refreshed mine, I wasn't getting the orange color that I wanted, but I am getting buttons and stuff like that in the themes or colors that I want to have. So for example, you can see I've got this orange button here, and you're seeing that my nav bar is actually it's updating to this orange color. And the reason is because when I go to navbar and I click this little button here that's in front of the search button, I click that, it's actually telling me, if you look in the code here, what it's telling me right at the very top in my nav class, that navbar is dark, but the background is primary. Okay, so if I were to select this one, my background would be dark, and then this one here, my background would be considered light. Okay. Now the place to do that is in my layout.css. Okay, so I've got, I've changed this BG to primary. And I'm going to change this here to dark. Okay. And I'm going to save that. And if I go back to my site, and I go to here and I do a refresh, there should be a change to this here. Okay, so you have to just match up the different colors. Notice I do have all these changes inside my CSS, and by the way, we do need to get rid of store. Okay, but when I go to home and then say categories, okay, it's in there. So if I do a create new, you can see the orange colored changes. I'm gonna go in, I'll figure that out. It's not totally important to what we're doing today. There is one other thing that I'd like to actually do with this website. And I'd like to replace this Georgian online grocery store with an image tag instead of that. And I've looked around and I found some images online. I don't know which one I'm gonna use, but I'm gonna have a look. But to do that, I need to be back in my layout again. Okay, and I got to replace this with an image tag. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is just take this here out, and I'm actually going to hit the enter key. And what I need to do is actually go to my image folder here. Okay, I'm going to right click, add an existing item. Now I need to go and actually find the images that I just saved. So I do have a couple of images that I really like, this one being the one I like the most, but unfortunately this one's orange. And I've got this one. You can see in the background there's the logo, whoever created this, and then this one here. But this one's got this vector stock, so I would have to end up cropping that out and stuff like that. But let's give this one a try. Okay, so I'm going to add that into my image folder. Okay. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm just going to do a normal image. So it'll be img. You can see img and src equals. Okay, and you can see the IntelliSense starts to ask me where it is, image, and I have to just navigate to where it is, and it's this thing here. Okay, and then the other thing I want to do with that is alt equals, and I'll say okay, and capitalize that, and then just close it out. Okay, that's all I want to do for that. So I'm going to go ahead and save that, and let's see what happens when we go back out and do a refresh. Okay, clearly that is somewhat monstrous. So we got to figure out how to make that much smaller. I guess the other thing that I really don't like about it, it's got a white background. So I'm going to go around, I'm going to search online and find something with a transparent background. Okay. Okay, so I found a much better icon that I liked. So if I go to home, for example, or I go to privacy, and then I click on the icon, it takes me home. Okay, however, let's look at this in reality. That icon is stunningly gigantic. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go into my Solution Explorer, because I want to go and select that from the actual file itself. So if I'm in my image, okay, there's the icon there, and now I'm going to open that up in, if I can, open with Paint. Okay, and it tells me that this is 512 by 512. So if I go to here and I resize this, let's go with 75 by 75. I don't know if that's realistic or not, but I'm gonna go with it. Now the reason I did that is because I'm actually updating the original one that I've been saving. So this one here is the one that I was saving. So I'll save that, and I'll go back out. Go back out here, and I'm going to do a refresh. Okay, now, interesting what just happened here. This was a vector that was taking on the properties of the background. And what's happened is, because of Paint, I think I've lost some of the Paint sometimes does that. It'll remove the transparency in the background. Okay, so I searched all over the internet and I found an icon. The challenge is that when I shrunk it down with Paint, even this one, what happens is it deletes the transparency of the background. And I know that there's probably some sort of Photoshop tool or whatever, but it's kind of outside the scope of what this tutorial is about anyway. We've really veered off topic. So I'm actually going to let it go. I'm not going to be all that concerned about it. Okay, just letting you know that if you click on the icon from any other location, it brings you back to home. Okay, so I just wanted to be able to show you that really quickly. Keep in mind that this website is in fact still responsive. Okay, so if I move out, you can see that I've got my normal nav bar, but it does go into a hamburger. Okay, and that's just to, you know, illustrating what happens with cell phones. Okay, so next thing I want to do is actually get into this topic of authentication and authorization. So this is where we're getting into this button here, the register and the login. Today's lesson, what we're going to do is talk about the ASP.NET identity, and we're going to use it for authorization and authentication. So let's just quickly have a look at the various levels in the .NET identity architecture. So far we've done the top level and the bottom level. And in today's lesson, we're going to focus on the middle two, the green section and the blue section. Okay, and in the green section, we want to use some of the features in identity. And in the blue, we can use Entity Framework to allow us to connect to the tables in the database for the purpose of managing who is accessing our application. Okay, and I'd like to pull up this tutorial right now. It's a great online reference. And we're not going to do all of it, but we are going to touch on some of the stuff inside of this online tutorial from Microsoft. So it's got a lot of really good stuff in here. And we're going to just simplify it, I think, and not make it overly complicated for what we want. Okay, but it's the Introduction to Identity on ASP.NET Core. And it was updated, I think, January 15th, 2020. So it's still pretty good and current. Okay. So if we look at what the difference between authentication versus authorization, okay, it comes down to really two things. Ultimately, I think it comes down to who versus what, or who and what. So really, if you look at this, you've got authorization, that's who, and It also, it's kind of on a two-level thing. It tells me who you are, but then authentication, which is who you are, there's authorization, tells me what you're actually allowed to do. Okay, so this boils down to who are you and what are you allowed to do. Okay, so there's kind of two levels to this. If you look at the authorization tells me who you are, the authentication says, okay, that's great, but then we have to say, okay, what are you allowed to do? And within the entity framework, there's this other level, which is your authentication type. And you can see down on the bottom right, this is kind of stuff where it says you can log into our web application with, say, your Google account or your Facebook account. Okay, that's the kind of second level that we're talking to when we look at this. So if we get into the identity tables, this is really what it looks like. And this main box here in the middle is pretty important. So this is the back end of the identity tables. Okay, and this the center table here, this bigger one, it's got this unique identity. It's a string, and I think it's a global string as well, but it's meant to give us all these little options here. Okay, so for example, I've got two-factor authentication. So if you've had the experience where you tried to log into something, but you got sent a text or an email with a code, it's the two-factor authentication to get into something. Okay, there's another option is locking people out if they've tried to log into your application X number of times, which you didn't find to be acceptable. So your bank account, you try to get in too many times, unsuccessfully, you get locked out. So it has those kind of features built into it. Okay. The good thing is we can actually customize some of this for what we want to do. This is not set in stone. You can actually go in and do some editing and customization on this. So I think that's excellent. So identity uses these two classes, identity user and identity role. And boils down to who and the what. And so we're going to do a little modification to these two classes. And down the bottom, we've got to do some updating in our DB context class as well. Okay, and this is going to handle authentication and authorization through the use of these two other classes. So this is in our startup.cs file. We've got some slight configurations that we've got to change as well. So here they are, but we're going to get into them when we get into the actual Visual Studio and start modifying it. And then there's this one more thing that we have to do is our partial login that you've probably seen over on the right side of the screen. We've got to do some updates here. So you can see right now we need to replace what's existing there now with this other line of code at the bottom. So we'll make those modifications. So I think all in all, the amount of work that we actually have to do is pretty minimal. I'm back in the home page right now. And before I begin with this tutorial on the registration and the login, I want to just point out the fact that .NET Core is cookie based. So unless you have them turned off, each time when I go in and I do a registration, it's actually going to remember those things for me. So I can, if I choose to, just rely on that. But if I lose it and I don't write down my example email and passwords, there's a chance I could lose this stuff. So I would advise that you don't just rely on the cookies, although it will work, but I wouldn't rely on just the cookies. I would actually write down the password and the email that you're going to use. And like I said earlier, you're going to need at least two, one for the administrator and one for being a customer. Okay, because we're actually going to look at all three different accounts open maybe simultaneously so that we can see what the permissions are for one user vice another type of a user. Okay. In Visual Studio, I'd like to look at a view called Views Shared and this underscore login partial. So when I open that up, what you can see is the ASP.NET Core.Identity and this sign-in manager and user manager. Okay, and the first thing that you see is sign-in manager dot is signed in, and that's the user. Okay, and when that happens, what you get presented with is a message saying, hello, your username that you have registered with. Okay, and vice versa, when you log out, you've got this here. And I want to just point out that when we log in, we go to accounts, manage index, but when we log out, it's accounts, log out. Okay, so we're navigating to different locations. And down here in this bottom nav bar, you're seeing this identity again, and the ASP page, which is account, register, and then account, login, and login. Okay, so that's where you're getting that on our nav bar when we go to here. So if I go back to home and then I go to register or login, this is what we're really dealing with. So right now, what I just showed you, this code is for the login. Okay. And of course, what's interesting about this is that this is just a nav bar with one big if else statement. So if we are logged in, great, then we look at this. Else, then we can look at this, which is register at this line. It takes us to this registration page. So for example, if I try to log in and I don't have anything, okay, it takes us to a registration page. And that's all actually pretty cool because it's happening with just 2 items in a nav bar. Okay, so I think that's pretty powerful that it actually scaffolded out all of that functionality for us. And of course, remember where that was. That was way back in the new project. If we said this ASP.NET Core web application, next I'll just do create. And it was because of this authentication, no authentication, this change. When we said individual user accounts, that's where that came from. Okay, so obviously I'm gonna cancel this and not do that, but I just wanted you to know where that was actually from. Now, since we actually haven't registered, okay, when we go to try and log in, it's not going to recognize us, so it's going to send us back to registration. So we'll have to register first in order to log in later. And one more point I want to make is we did this whole cookie-based idea, but this remember me is more about you put in your email and you say, okay, I give you permission to remember my password. So it's kind of a hybrid cookie, you could say, but it's, it's not fully going to remember until you tell it to remember you. Okay. An area in the Solution Explorer that we haven't talked about is this area, identity, pages, view start. So I'm opening that up right now. The reason I'm showing you this is because this is actually a separate sort of category of files inside the MVC paradigm that we've been using. So what I'm trying to say is that up until this point, we have actually operated inside models, views, and using controllers. But with this, if we want to actually add separate views to our project outside of the views that we've created in the MVC, we can do that, and we can do that in here. Okay. I just wanted to show you that because I want you to know that it is possible to actually add in other functionality and other views that are separate from the MVC paradigm itself. Okay, I'm not going to do it for this project, but you should be aware that you can in fact go in and add them and not have an interruption to your other views. Okay, and a good example of this is maybe you want to go in and do a different type of authentication or a different type of a login that you feel is better than what you're being offered. Okay, so that's why this kind of stuff exists. But let's say I did actually want to go and do this. I could go into Pages, right click on that, and do Add, and you can see down here, New Scaffolded Item. So as this pops up, I've got these available to me if I want to choose them, but I can actually go down here and look at this identity. So if I double clicked on identity, this is going to take me to a window that is going to show me many more templated options that I could pull into my project if I wanted to. So you see that opened up, and let's look at a few of the examples. So account registration confirmation, or I could do one for account reset password, forgot password confirmation, confirm email change, change password. These are all the different templates. If I wanted, I could pull in to the project. Okay, so just so you know, they are there. There's this two-factor authentication and stuff. These are all things I'm not going to do, but it's important that you're aware that they do exist. Okay, so that's what I wanted to show you with that right now. So I'm going to get out of there. At this point, what I'm going to do is actually go in and create an account. And just want to forewarn you that it's not actually going to work right away. There are many steps we have to go through to get this set up. Okay, so right away, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to make this one a admin at tutorial.ca. Okay, and my password, I'm going to play around here. I'm going to show you a couple of things, because for validation, it wants more than just, ABC123. But what it's going to want is, let's do that, ABC123. Okay, we'll go to here, ABC123. Okay, and I'll do a registration. So the password and confirmation password do not match. Okay, so ABC123. They still don't match. And that's because ABC123, I typed it terribly. Now it says password must have at least one non-alphanumeric character. Okay, the password must have at least one uppercase. So if I were to just say, okay, I need an uppercase and I need an alphanumeric, different than an alphanumeric. So really what I'm going to do is say capital A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, exclamation. So capital A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, exclamation. And okay, I'm actually not going to save this right now. So register confirmation. This app does not currently have a real email sender registration. See those docs for how to configure a real email sender. Normally this would be emailed. Check here to confirm your account. So I'm going to check there. See, not much going on there. This is pretty powerful, and I want to tell you why. And it's because if you think back to this slide that we looked at earlier, maybe I don't know how much time I spent on this, but if you look at this, this is all of what we call our user roles and our user claims, all these different tables. This was the database that normally before having to do migrations and stuff like that, you'd actually have to go in through your SQL and come up with all these scripts, run these scripts, populate your database, then connect into it, do all that kind of stuff. But what's really awesome about this is that these already exist. So when we actually look at, in the previous example where I opened up a brand new project and I didn't, or I selected the security and I told you, hey, this is where we're getting our registration and our login. If we didn't make that change to our security, if we actually didn't do that, not only would we not have the buttons, but we also wouldn't have had the tables already built for us. And to prove it to you, what I want to do is I want to go into our data migrations, and I'm going to open up the very first file in our migrations. Okay, and here it is. Okay, we did a create table, ASP net roles, okay, ID, name, normalized name, that's all in there. We have ASP net users. Okay, so we've got roles and we've got users. Down here we've got claims, ASP net role claims, and it goes on and on and on. ASP net user claims. Okay, so these were already done for us. Now let's take it one step further. Let's go into our Georgian groceries, into our tables, and look at this. Okay, ASP net role claims, roles, user claims, user logins. Okay, so that's why when we got to this page, I was able to actually do the registration, and then it produced this message here for me. Okay, that's why. That's pretty powerful. Used to be you actually had to go in and do a lot of that work all on your own. But in this case, you don't have to do that anymore. Okay? So the two types of identities that we have, we've got our identity user, and then that user is going to actually have a role. Okay, so this is what we're talking about, really saying the who and the what. Okay, who are you and what do you get to access? What are you authorized to do and look at inside the website? Okay, so we've got users and we've got roles. Okay, so you'll need to be looking out for identity users and identity roles. Okay, and let's go see inside Visual Studio some things that we may have to go in there and start playing around with. Okay, I'm going to close that, and I want to go down to our startup file because there's a little bit of reconfiguration that I need to do in here. So in my startup, I want to look down here on this line 32 and line 33. In fact, maybe even line 33 and 34 are more important. And we haven't really gone in and even looked at this, but you can see right above it, this very important line, this default connection. Okay, that is your connection string to your DB context. But right now what I want to do is just focus in on this identity user thing. So you can see right here, add default identity. Now I've got my identity user. That is, let's say for example, the account that I just created. And this option says that options.signin require confirmed account. And you see that that's actually set to true. I'm actually going to set that to false. And the reason is because I don't have an email server set up. So when we go back to here and we look at this message, it says this app does not currently have a real email sender registered. Okay, blah, blah, blah. But this is looking for click here to confirm your account. Okay, so it did not send me an account to that dummy email that I created. Okay, so that's what that is. I'm just shutting that requirement for me to validate my email from an email and then be able to access the site. Okay, so that's what I'm shutting off right now. So if at this point, all we were doing was letting people log in and they didn't have different roles. They weren't administrators, they weren't employees, they were just everybody right across the board was the same exact thing, then this code would be fine. Okay, but since we are going to actually put in the roles that our users are going to have, we have to actually add in a line, and we're going to do that on line 34. So by default, this is going to handle that first level of authentication. Okay, and what this is going to be is add, and let's see if we get the IntelliSense to pick it up. Okay, so roles. Okay, it's right here. And I do honestly, I strongly suggest, I know I say it in every one of my videos, but I strongly suggest you let the IntelliSense do a lot of that for you. It will eliminate errors. Okay, and that's going to be identity role. And is it in there? Identity, I could scroll down and find it, and there it is. Identity role. Okay, and that's a method. So let that do that piece for you. So in this case, what's going to happen is we're going to have one person who's an administrator. And then after that, everybody is just going to be a customer. Okay, you could actually have different administrative people have access to your website depending on the actual organization. But for this example, we're just going to stick to one admin and everyone else will be a customer. But I want to point out that you can have the general public still surfing your page even though they don't have an account. It's only when they go to purchase something will they actually need to register an account. So in all honesty, you have three different types of people looking at the site. There is administrators, customers, and then there's customers that don't have an account yet, or at least until they purchase or make a decision to register. So let's say we want to restrict visibility of something, for example, a view. Okay, we can actually use a keyword literally called authorize. And you can put that above your methods, and that is going to actually restrict access or even visibility to people that are not logged in, as an example. And we'll go in and actually do this. What's also important to note in here is that when we look at our packages, we have our Microsoft.ASP netcore.identity and our identity framework core. Okay, these are the libraries that produce all of that code in the background for us. So if we did not select to change the login criteria in the beginning when we first created the project, these packages wouldn't be included. Okay, but since we made that change right up front when we built the project folder or the solution, these packages got included. I think what I want to do now is actually go and register another account. Let's see what's going on. Okay, so there was a little bit of a delay because of whatever. So instead of admin at tutorial.ca, I'm going to say customer. Okay, customer. And I'm going to just do, I can actually do the same exact password because this has no idea that I'm the same person. Plus, I could technically, if I wanted to, be an admin because I'm an employee. But if I want to purchase things, I probably have to have an employee account. So I'm just going to do capital A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, exclamation mark. Okay, capital A, B, C, 1, 2, 3. And I know you're probably thinking, man, who'd want to work at that place? Okay, so here's some differences here. Now, because we changed that one functionality, that one line of code in our startup to true, now what it says is hello customer at tutorial.ca. Okay, so it didn't give me that nonsense about having to validate my email and everything like that, but it does log me in automatically. And then it switches that from a login to an actual log out. Okay, so right now what I have inside this system is 2 accounts. I've got my admin account and I've got my customer account. And let's go into our actual database. Okay, so if we go to our ASP.NET users table, okay, and I have a look and see what's inside there. Okay, let's do a refresh. So the reason it didn't actually appear a moment ago was because I was in my local database and didn't realize I was actually connected into Azure. But anyway, when you get into your Azure tables and you go to ASP.NET users and you right click and do select top 1000 rows, you can see that I've got my 2 accounts. I've got customer at tutorial and I've got admin at tutorial. Okay, and remember I put in the same exact password. Okay, and what it did is it actually hashed my password. So it didn't matter that I use the same one because it reconfigures it to a password hash. So anyway, everything's good to go. And I now have 2 accounts inside. One is an admin and one is a customer. Okay. So I'm logged out, but now I want to log back in. And you can see the cookies are saying, okay, well, which one? Okay, but I didn't select the remember last time, but I'm going to do that this time because I don't feel like remembering all these passwords. Okay, and I'm going to log in. And there it is. Hello customer at tutorial.ca. Now, one thing I want to do is I want to tackle the visibility that non-registered or improper roles are going to be able to see. And so as an example, one thing I can do is I can do that in entire controllers. Okay, I can block out everything that somebody who is not authorized to see it. I can block all that inside a controller. So if I go to categories controller, okay, everything in the categories controller, I can hide from view, or I can just hide certain views that I don't want people to see. I don't want to give them access to certain things. I can do one or the other or both. Okay. So right above my constructor here, what I can actually, or my, not my constructor, right above my class, what I can do in these square brackets is type in authorize. Okay. And what that does is it makes everything below it private. Okay. So let's go out and see what the effect of that, those actions are on the site itself. So that was, what did I choose? Our categories. So if I go out to here and I go to categories, okay, and it's just doing its thing. Okay, I can see that. And the reason I can see that is because I'm logged in as a customer. So let's go somewhere else to a different thing, and I'm going to make sure that I'm not actually logged in. Okay, and notice I did not log into this. So what can I see? I can't actually see anything. So if I go all the way back to here and I say categories, okay, doesn't allow me to see that. Okay, because I'm not actually authorized to see that. So you can see how that was actually an automated process. I was trying to just get into categories, even though I don't have an account. And because of that one simple line of putting in authorize right above my class, what ends up happening is it redirects me using identity, account, and login. Okay, it redirects me back to the login. Okay, just simply by putting in this authorize decorator. Okay, that's all it is. It's a decorator. So what happens if, now that I'm in the login, that I do actually go in there? Okay, so let's just say I do customer at tutorial.ca, and then I log in with my password. I log in, and now look at what happened. I'm just going to hit never. It actually took me right to where I was intending on going. Okay, so it remembers what you're trying to get into. And then once in it, and if you don't have an actual account or you weren't logged into an account, it took you to the login. But once the login credentials were input, then it actually took me to the page I was trying to get to originally. So it doesn't lose my place where I am. I don't have to go navigate and try to find my way back to where I was trying to get into in the first place. So really quickly, you can start to see how powerful that was. Because when we first created the project, we made changes to our login credentials. And what happened was that actually gave us these really special libraries that when we then migrated our database, it built all of these tables in order for us to capture the login and password and all that kind of stuff. And then just by changing this word here to false, and then adding this line here, okay, and then the last thing we did, we put this decorator authorize. We were able to create an enormous amount of useful, practical functionality within our website. Okay, I think it's pretty powerful stuff. So as you know, everything right now is private. But suppose there's an instance where I want to have some of my methods are private and some of my methods are not private. They're actually public. Okay, so what I could do is say move the authorized decorator just in front of those methods that I want to be private. That's one thing that I can do. So let's suppose we do want to make one member inside there public. Okay, and you see this commented word here, this get. Okay, so getters are typically read only. Okay, so maybe somebody doesn't have the ability to go in and manipulate that, but maybe we want them to be able to just look at it, just to see it. Okay, so details is an example of where we would want somebody just to be able to see something, and that's all that we want them to do. So for example, I'm logged in under customers, okay, and I've got my categories and details. All it does is just show me something. I have no ability to make any changes to this particular details page. I can in the edit, but I can't in the details page. Okay, so maybe there's something we can do about that. So even maybe I want to allow anonymous users to see the details, but they can't do any sort of editing or deleting or manipulation of that at all. They can just see it. Okay, so, you know, we've got like we said, we have three different types of users. We have an anonymous user, somebody with no account. We have an admin, and we have a customer. So let's say there are things that we want everybody to be able to see. Okay, something like details. So what do we do with controllers? We actually have controllers that do this IA action and they return a view. But because currently authorize is at the top of my class right here, this means everything in here is now private. It can't be seen. And even if I were to log out and then try to change the URL up here to details, you know, if I try to do something like, for example, I'll even do this. Okay, if I try to do this in a different URL that I'm not logged in, let me log out of there and try to put this in here. Okay, it's going to take me to the login. Okay, I'm not allowing anonymous users to see anything either. Okay, so if you really consider what's going on at this moment, nobody can see this, the content inside this website at all right now. So lucky for us, you know, this decorator has a very common, almost English style of readability, because it's just called allow anonymous, and the IntelliSense picks it up. Okay, and what that means is obviously anonymous is, hey, I don't have an account, I have no login to this website. That's your anonymous user. So if I save that, okay, I'll do a quick build on it because it's been a while. And now if I go back out and let's say I want to put that URL again to details. There, you can see I'm not registered, I'm not logged in, but I have access to these details. Okay, and that's the important thing. So what happens if I go to edit? Sends me right back to here, because all I did was give anonymous users access to look at that read-only view. So to be clear, this is just the first level. Okay, it just says really who they are. It doesn't actually say what they're allowed to do. It doesn't talk about the role that they play. Okay, so it doesn't talk about the difference between an anonymous user, a administrator, or a customer, as an example. So if you're wondering why at this point I actually haven't gone in and dealt with my nav bar at all, it's because I was waiting to get to this point where I could deal with people that are logged in versus people that are anonymous on what you can and cannot see. Okay, so what I think I should do at this point, it's really appropriate that I add to my navbar categories and products. If you were guessing the way that, or the place that I needed to change that was going to be in my layouts file, you would have definitely been correct. Okay, so let me make a little bit more space here. And something I haven't talked about or dealt with is this particular one right here. And what that is that link. Okay, maybe we should clean that up while we're doing the other navigation items as well. Okay, I could technically just go in and start deleting the store controller and anything else associated with store. You can see we don't have any models associated with it. I've got these views down here. I could technically go in and do that, but I'm not going to waste time doing that right now. But what I do need is actually this link. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. I'm going to do a Control X to this, and then I'm going to move between home and index. So when you look on my page, you see I've got the icon, I've got home, privacy, and store. So store should disappear, but I'm going to move these other items right here after my home. Okay, and the controller that I need, because the first one I want to do is going to be a category. Okay, now what I want to do is, so there's no doubt, I just want to grab the exact word, because as you all know by now, I can't spell to save my life. Okay, and then the second one I'm going to change is going to be products. So I'll do the same thing here. Grab the word products, and I'm going to dump that right in there. Now I can change this to say products. Okay, and this one is going to say categories. Okay, and I'm going to save that, and let's go out and have a look and see what's going on. So there we go. We've got home, categories, products, and privacy. So let's try it out. Notice I'm not logged in. Let me go to my other one where I am logged in. I think I'm logged in somewhere. Okay, I'm not logged in, so let's go to log in and see what we can see. So we'll go with customer and the same password. Okay, and log in. And now I can go and see my categories. I can also go in and see my products. As you can see here, I haven't actually populated anything. Okay, so if I go to products, I think I'm going to go to vegan turkey, nothing important. Okay, how about Tom loves vegan turkey. Sorry guys, I know you don't want to hear it. Okay, I'm going to just go get my vegan turkey. I've got my photo and I honestly don't have a clue. Create. I've got my image, edit, back, and details, and I've still got my image, so back. Okay, but as a logged in person, I can go to the categories and now I can go to my products. It is my hope that you noticed that an anonymous user cannot see these. Okay, you know what keeps happening? I log in with one and I end up logging in with the other. So why don't we try and do this? Let's see if I can do a local host. Let's see if, no, wrong class. Okay, and I'm in there and I'm going to see if I can log out and stay out. Okay. Does it allow me? Okay, in both of my iterations, one I'm in and the other one I'm out. Okay, so between the two. So my goal right now is actually to make it so an anonymous user, somebody who's not registered or logged in, cannot see categories and products. Now, the way that I'm going to do this is I'm going to go into my navbar, and I'm trying to deal with these two issues. Okay, my categories and my products. And I can really do that just by saying if, okay, it's a condition. And so my user, okay, and always select the IntelliSense if you can, identity dot is authenticated. Okay, that's the important thing, is authenticated. And so what I'm going to do is actually put these two items. Okay, I want those to be surrounding my two options on my menu. Okay, so I'm going to save that. Okay, and now let's go back out, and I've got to refresh this. Okay, so I am not registered or logged in right now. Okay, I'm not logged in. Technically, I'm registered. But over here, you can see as a customer, and I'll refresh that too. Okay, it kicked me out. So I'm going to log in, customer, and I suppose I should add the remember me. Okay, I'm logged in, and I'm logged out. Okay, so you can't see the two items in the navbar. And it was only because I just put those two things into this if statement on my navbar. So we do have a lot more editing that we want to do, but I want to point something out here because we're far from done on this. Okay, as easy as Microsoft makes it, we're still far from done. So you noticed I'm not logged in. Okay, but one of the challenges right now is that I can still get in there. Okay, so that's a big issue for me, is that even an anonymous user can get in there and have a look, and then let's say start doing editing and some looking at my details, stuff like that, right? And maybe even get in there and delete it. Okay, I certainly wouldn't want the public to get in there to edit that and then change my candy to $2.99. Okay, but that's exactly what is available right now in this condition. So we need to go in and do something about that. So just like we did for the categories controller, what I'd like to do is actually go to the products controller and do the exact same thing. So right above the class declaration, let's put this, sorry about that. Let's put the wrapper of authorize inside there. Okay. And so now when I go back out, okay, I'm not logged in. I shouldn't be able to see anything on this page. Okay. And it does redirect me back to logging in. Okay. So that's the first step. I want to point out that if you are getting a red line or an error or anything like that underneath, which is possible that you're getting it, you're just basically can accept the first reference. I don't have it on here, and that's because of this line right here. So if I were to, let's say, comment that out, you would see momentarily I'll get this red line. Okay, so show potential fixes is going to be use Microsoft ASP core.authorization. So that's what I would want to change. So if you're having an issue with that, just remember it's because you need the references. So far with this, one of the things we've done is some authentication. Okay, we've authenticated. But now it's time to start looking at authorization. And that is the difference, say, between a customer or an administrator. And so what we're going to do is we need to be in our management studio for this next thing, because we're actually going to run a script. And if you're following in on Blackboard, you'll have this, these two lines right here. Okay, they're insert into ASP net roles, ID, name, normalized in name, values 1, administrator and administrator, and then values 2, customer and customer. Okay, so they're very similar. I'm currently connected to Azure, and it's up to you what you want to do or how you want to be connected. But right now I'm currently connected to the Azure server. Okay. And you can see here, I've even got this note on here that you should see. And I did this in a video the other day. Okay. And it's got this is not connected to Azure. It is not local. Sorry, this is connected to Azure. It is not local. And then you can see down here, that's the name of my Azure. Okay. So you need to take a minute and get connected to whichever database. And you can see down here, I'm actually not connected. So this is what'll, when I want to connect, this is what'll pop up. So right now I want to stay in my Azure, and I put in my credentials, and I'm going to do a connection. Okay. And I'm hoping that thing will, I think that stays there anyway. Okay. So I'm going to close that out and just do a refresh just because I can. Okay, my databases, and there it is. Okay, so I need to be connected into Management Studio, either through Azure or through a local server. I'm going to go into Blackboard, and I want to actually copy and paste these two specific lines. Okay. So I'll just highlight them, Control C, and I'm going to go into Management Studio, and I'm going to right click on my Georgian Grocery Store V2. I'm going to right click on there and do a new query. And I'm going to go into the window here and do a Control V. Before I go ahead and run that, what I'd like to do is go into this table here called ASP Net Roles. Okay, and I'm going to go in and select top 1000 rows. Okay, and that's the script there, and you can see I have nothing in there. So now I'm going to go over to here, and with this I'm actually going to just go over and do execute or F5. So I'm going to run that execution. And now it says 1 row affected, 1 row affected, and it gave me a timestamp of when it happened. So if I go back to here, okay, and then I hit execute again, what you're seeing is an update to that. I've got an administrator and a customer, okay? So now that I've done this, the good thing is that I can create an administrative account and then add that administrative account to an administrative role. And then after that, everything after that I do, that I create, every new enrollment after that administrator is automatically going to get enrolled or registered as a customer. Okay? And this is to prevent people from registering themselves as administrators, which would thereby allow them to go in and do all sorts of administrative changes to the site. Okay? So another thing that I actually have to do is I actually have to go in and delete those two accounts that we had, because they were created prior to the script that we had just run on the roles. So roles did not actually exist before those user accounts got created. So what I'm going to actually do is I do have to delete them, but I'm going to come back and recreate them now that our ASP net roles have been added to the database. And the way I'm going to do this is actually I will go back into the same script I had, and I'm going to do delete from ASP, and let's see if it rolls. Okay, or sorry, users. I'm going to delete from ASP users. Now, add a semicolon there. All I need to do here, because I don't want to rerun this code here, all I need to do is just highlight that and then right click on it and just do an execute. Okay. And so when we get back to our users and we go down here and we say, look at the top, notice that they're gone. Okay. I don't have those two user accounts anymore. So in effect, any time or any instance that I was logged in here, I can no longer be logged in anymore. And one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to just change my email address here. Actually, I'll probably keep it when I recreate those. So the way it works right now is that there are no users of any kind, no customers, no anonymous, and no administrators. But there are two very distinct kinds of roles. You can either be a customer or an administrator. And like I said earlier, there's only going to be one administrator, and everybody else after that will automatically be a customer. I'm going to go in right now and do my admin account, and it'll be the same password as before. And the only reason it's the same password is because I've become accustomed to it. I might actually remember it. So we'll do a registration of that. And you can see that I'm now once again logged in. And if we go back to our table down here, you can see that I'm back in there as an admin at tutorial.ca. So because we now have this administrator account, we now have to manually, through an SQL line of code, we have to manually now assign them to the role of being the administrator. So this third line in Blackboard is the one we want. It's insert into ASP.NET user roles. And it's a junction table. It's got a role ID and a user ID. And that it is select one ID from ASP.NET users, which is the user that we just put in as the administrator. Okay, so I'm going to take that whole line and I'm going to Control-C it. And I'm going to head back into my SQL. And let's see where I ran that last query. Is it this one? No, I'm going to start closing stuff down in a second. Not this one. Definitely not this one. This one. Okay, and just like before, what I'll do is I will paste that in and I'm going to highlight it. Okay, so just to be clear, number one here and here, one is an administrator. Okay, and we're selecting number one from ID from ASP.NET users. And when we go down to here and you look at the number that we have, you can see there's only one. It's an admin. Okay, ID, and it's one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this and I'm going to right click and go halfway down and execute. And you see one row affected. So let's go ahead and check it. So we have users, but we also have user roles. So I am going to right click on there and select the top one, whatever. And so you have it here, role ID 1, user ID. Okay, so let's go back and see if this particular, what is this ID? Let's see what it ends in. 2EB, okay? And this one here in our, the last query that we ran, 2EB. So what it's saying is the user ID for the admin account that we just made, they match. And we're now, this user ID is the same as this user roles. So we have another big challenge that we need to discuss and talk about when I log out. Okay, I'm going to log out and I want you to look at the URL up here. Okay, it's identity/account/register. So if I go into my Visual Studio here, where do I find that? Okay, it's not in a controller. We didn't create it as a view. Okay, it's not in home, it's not products, it's not in shared. Okay, so that's a bit of a big deal because we want to leave the UI exactly the way it is, but we need to update the code that impacts this page, because every user from now on, we want to now be the customer and not an administrator. Remember earlier when I talked about this tab right here, areas, identity, and pages. Okay, so one of the things I said we could do is go in and get these other templates. Okay, so if I were to right click on here, go to add, new scaffolded item. So I'm going to choose this identity right here and then identity, and I'm going to do add, and it's going to bring up that list of templates that we talked about earlier. With the template open, I'm going to leave this top line as it is. We're going to stay with the views, shared, and layout, but I want to go and change this one. So I want the UI to stay the same, but I want to be able to manipulate the code that's in here. And that's why I'm selecting this one. And now that I've done that, I have this, you notice that I can't do an add. What I have to do is select this drop down, and here's my application DB context. which is something that we've looked at a few times in the past. So I have to select that one, and now I can hit my add. Now there's a good chance you were not expecting to see this. You probably wanted to see, I don't know, some sort of more C# looking code. Well, you're not going to be disappointed because this is just a text file. And I'll close that because when we look over here in our pages under account, okay, now we are getting the files that we wanted to actually open up. The file that we actually wanted to see is this register right here. Okay, that's the one we want to see. So we never actually saw that when we first started up, when we were doing the registration. It was kind of hidden from us. Okay, so we had to just go through those templated steps and kind of re-scaffold out this thing so that we could see that. So this code that we have right here, this register, this isn't really the code that we want to change. Okay, this is what we've already been looking at. But if you see over in register, there's a drop down here, this little arrow, and then there's this strange extension here. It's cshtml.css, and that's because it's just under that file structure. Now keep in mind this part of the code is outside of the MVC. Okay, this is a little bit of a different thing. So what I do want to do is I'm going to go to, instead of looking at this HTML type of stuff, I want the C#. So if I open that up, this is really what I want to see. And as we scroll down, you can obviously, this is all C# kind of code. And there's this line 71 right here. So up until this point, this is what we have been seeing, and this is what we've been using. Okay, so let's go through this super quick, not painstaking at all. And like I said, this entire method here, this is what we've been dealing with so far. Remember that line of code where we set the true to false, and this was because we were looking at using an email server and all that kind of stuff. So all of that complicated stuff that we were looking at, so it's right in here, for example, right? So confirm your email, all that stuff is in here. The stuff above is create the new user, the email and all that kind of stuff, and then input the password. That's all that stuff in here. Okay, this is what we've been using as we've been inputting to register for a new account. But what we want to do is make that one little change right in here so that when somebody does log in from now on, or they register from now on, they become a customer. So I've added this line right here, okay, on line 81. So automatically add new users to the customer role that we created in the database. And what we're going to do is it's literally going to be one line of code. So we're going to say var, and it's going to be role result, like the result of the role that the new customer is logging into. And we're going to say equals await, okay, and underscore user manager. Okay, and that's the same thing up here. Okay, user manager. And we're going to call this one dot add to role async. Okay, and it's this one here, and there's two parameters that we're going to pass into that. Okay, and those two parameters are going to be user, comma, and then customer. Okay, and that's what we're going to pass in. Now, before I go looking all over the place, what I want to make sure that I do, because you've all watched me spell, I want to actually go and get this, because I don't want to take a chance that I'm going to get fat finger syndrome and mistype that. Okay, it was typed properly, but I don't want to take a chance because that's not the kind of thing I want to be debugging for hours upon hours. Okay, so I'm going to save that. So clearly from now on, going forward, when somebody logs in, okay, the expectation is in their user roles, okay, that they are going to be in a role 2. Okay, because right now we said that customers would be a 2. Okay. You may have that question of what does this word mean, await? Okay, and there's await and then there's asynchronous. Okay, so they're contrasting each other. And what that means is let this run while other processes are actually happening simultaneously. Okay, so not quite a thread, but maybe the idea of running different threads. I don't know. That's the only analogy I can come up with. But we're contrasting that with asynchronous. Okay, so what that means is, hey, do this while other processes are continuing to happen in the background. So the moment of truth. Let's test this out. Right now we have an admin. So what I want to do now is register a customer. Okay, and it's going to be the same ABC 1 2 3 exclamation, capital ABC 1 2 3 exclamation, register. Ooh, got this nasty little error here. And I think my issue is I haven't built it in a while. Okay, so let's go and see if we can do this again successfully. Okay, I hit the refresh after I saved it and everything looks good. And you can see I've got this customer. That's where I'm logged in. Now let's go into our database. So I've got, I'm going to go to my users and select the top 1,000 rows. Okay, so you're seeing administrator and customer. Okay, and my customer starts with an F78. Okay, so now I'm going to go to roles and see what's happening in there. So select top 1,000 rows. And as you can see now, my customer, my F78, that's my customer user ID, is in a role 2. So everything looks like it's working perfectly. I'm going to continue to test that one more time. So I'm going to log out. I'm going to register and I'm going to call this customer customer 2. Oh, sorry. I'm going to call it customer 2. Same password, ABC 1 2 3 exclamation, ABC 1 2 3. Okay. And it didn't match because I didn't put the password in the same way. Okay, you can see that I'm enrolled or registered. And let's go back down to here. And what we should see is another customer with a role number 2. So if we rerun this, there you go. So we have our first one here, and that's our new customer, and they're both assigned as a role number 2, which is as a customer. Okay. So just a quick recap on this. Even as a customer now, one of the issues is I've only ever really been dealing with authentication, not authorization. So as it stands right now, I'm authorizing my customers to go in and look at my product category and then start doing things like CRUD. Okay, not a very good situation to be in with your customers. You don't want them going in there and changing prices of your candy. It's miserable. So this is another issue that we have to deal with. Okay. And the way to do this is through our controllers. And this is what we use the controllers to do with regard to security, is we get the controllers to validate authentication and authorization. I'd like to take a top-down approach to this first before we start looking at controllers and stuff like that. And the place I'm going to do that is right off the top in our navbar. Now earlier we added this if statement, okay, and we're going to modify this. And the reason is because we went through this painstaking exercise of setting up the roles. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm actually going to change this. It's not going to be .identity. It's going to be .is in role. Okay, and which is a method. Okay, now, like I've said before, has to be spelled exactly. So I'm going to go back into my Management Studio, copy, and I'm going to paste that right in there. Okay, it has to be exactly spelled the same. So I've got that in there, and I'm going to do a save. Okay. No longer are we checking to see if they're logged in. We're also seeing if they are logged in as an administrator role. So obviously the prudent thing to do now would be to test this out. And I want to make sure that it's saved. Okay, I'm going to do a build. I don't have to right now, but I'm going to do a build just in case. Okay, and I'm logged in under customer 2 at tutorial. So if I go ahead and refresh this, what you're seeing is I remain logged in under customer 2, but I lose the navbar for categories and I think products is what I was looking at. But you'll see here, it's still looking for categories in my URL. Okay, so let me log out of there and log in, and I'll go in under admin. Okay. Do a remember me and hope. Okay, so I'm logged in as an admin and my categories and my products still fully function. Okay, and even here, I get my URL is updated, but I can actually still see it in there. Okay, so let me log out one more time, and I'm going to log in as a customer. Okay. Okay, I've logged in as a customer. Okay, and I go to home and privacy. You can't see the navbar stuff; it's gone. But let's try this. Okay, still letting me in. Okay, still a bit of a challenge to go. Clearly, this is where the controllers come in. Okay, we went in and we did some work inside the controllers before. I'll put categories and products together. Okay, we're in the categories and we did authorization. Okay, previously. Right here you can see it. Okay, we did the same thing over in our products controller. Now we have to modify this to identify the roles. Okay. We can do this extremely easy and efficiently just by modifying this line 14. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to add in roles. Okay, and please understand this is pluralized because it could have more than one role. Okay, is going to equal and brackets, and I hope I still have my paste left over. Perfect. Okay, and that's what we need to do, and I'll have to close that out with the bracket and we're good. Okay, so we've got one more of these to update. I'm going to copy the entire thing and go into products and do the same thing. Okay. Let's test this out. So I'm in here as a customer. Okay. And I'll just refresh that. And right away, I get this message saying access is denied because I was trying to access the categories. Okay, so right away I got kicked out of there. So if I log out of there and I'm going to log in and I'm going to try admin, and of course it didn't save my password even though I said remember me, but I'll do it. ABC123. Okay. And I log into this, my stuff is here. I can still go in, I can look at editing, I can do details. That's great. I can go to products, look at details of products. That's great. Okay, nothing is really hindering me for doing anything. Okay, I'm not being hindered in any way. So let's log out and try logging back in as customer. Okay. Okay. So I'm in here and I'm going to try to navigate to that. Okay, and that's going to be products. Okay, sorry, that wasn't even the the URL that I was looking for. Okay, let's try that one more time. We'll go to here. Okay, and I get this again, access denied. So I am now in a state where I'm being authorized and authenticated at the same exact time. Okay, and that's a pretty important thing. So there's kind of no getting around it, unless you're phenomenally good at hacking. But for now, just know that the state that we're in is that if you're a customer, you don't get to see that even if you type in the URL. If you're an administrator, then you're allowed to go in and make kind of unrestricted access to any of the product catalog. I think the very last thing that I want to do today with all of this is I do want to redirect the public that are not logged in, or customers or whoever who are not logged in. I want to redirect them to a different controller and view. Okay. And what'll happen in the future is when we get to doing a shopping cart and stuff like that, we're going to let the public shop around, select items, add to cart. But if they haven't registered for an account, before they can actually check out and purchase their items, they're going to have to create an account first. Okay, so what we're going to do right now is this shopping or shop view that I want to do. So we're going to have to start off with a controller before we get to a view. So I'm going to go over to my controllers. I'm going to add a brand new blank controller. So add, and I'm going to select a controller, and I'm going to go to the top here, and I'm going to select the empty. And the reason I'm doing an empty one is this is eventually where our customers are going to go and shop for products. Okay, so this is not CRUD type of operations. This is something that we're going to have to customize and make visually appealing to our online shoppers. So we're going to go to empty, going to go to add, and I'm just going to do this controller class empty. And this one is going to be called shop controller. Okay. And I don't need the CS. So that's all that's going to be. I just want to confirm I spelled it right. Yes, I did. Okay, so I'm going to do an add. And here we are. We've got our shop controller right now. Now, since this is an empty controller, okay, there's very little in here. Okay, we're going to just go over to our categories controller and borrow some information. Okay, so the first thing is I need this private read-only application DB context. Okay, so none of this was scaffolded in to our shop controller for us. Okay, and then we had our public categories controller. So all of this stuff here too. Okay, we're going to take that. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'll take this whole first line here. I'm going to copy this, go into here, and I believe right above, should be right up here. So just under, right in this spot here. Okay, so line like 21, or sorry, 11 and 13. So what it's looking for here when it does that is I'll do a show potential fix. It's actually looking for the data. So if you look up top, you can see that I don't have a using Georgian groceries.data. Okay, that's what it's looking for. So I'm going to accept that, and it adds this in here. And then clearly this is not a categories controller. This is the shop controller. Okay, so copy, and I'll paste that in there. Okay, so that's what we're actually looking for now. And then this context equals context. So all of that stuff there is really the code that we're looking for. And I just want to make a final confirmation that we're actually good. Okay, so read only, yep, everything looks fine to me. By using the context, now we can go and find the list of categories and actually display those. So what this page is going to do is display the categories that we've put into the website already. Okay, so I think in my particular case, maybe I've got Halloween and Thanksgiving. I don't know. But keep in mind, like what we've made so far, this table with the hover functionality and all that stuff, that's for an administrator to look at. That's not a very good customer experience going in and trying to sift through spreadsheets on a web page. Okay, we have to give them something more aesthetically pleasing as front-end developers. And so that's the piece that we're going to have to do a little bit of our own creativity on anyway. And what I'd like to do for this one is now I'm going to go into my iAction result into this method. Okay, and we'll put a note in here. So I've added the note in there. Okay, get a list of categories to display to customers on the main shopping page. Okay, and what we're going to do there is something that somewhat familiar before. So categories, okay, is going to equal underscore context dot categories dot order by, and we're going to do an order by, and that will be C with the fat arrow, the dot name. Okay, and just on the outside it'll be a to list. Okay, there. Save that. And I also need to update the view method to categories. Okay, and there it is. Save that. So I'm basically saying, okay, here's my controller. And when I get down to my index method of my shop controller, I'm saying, go and get the list of categories that we create as the administrator. And do an order by their name, an alphabetical order by their name, and then display that to a view of all of those different categories. Okay, and now the one thing we're going to have to do with this is actually go out and have a look at our navbar. So what we have is right now is home. Okay, then we go to categories and products and then privacy. But when we're not an administrator, okay, and we can't see the categories and the products, the next thing we should see is probably shop now. So I'm going to take this whole line here and I'm going to do a copy, and right below I'll do a paste. And now I need to change my controller. Okay, and that's going to be shop. Okay, and I'll put something in there that says shop here. Okay, something like that. So I'll save that. Don't forget, we still don't have the view. We've just got a nav menu item that is actually taking us to a yet specified view. Okay, so let's go back out to the site and we're going to log out. Okay, and we're not logged in, but you see it right here. You've got home and the icon, and now you have shop here and privacy. So if I click on that, I'm obviously going to get an error. Okay, and I think went through this in the very first video. The reason we're getting an error is because we don't actually have an index view. Okay, there's no view for shop anywhere. Okay, so let's just return back to there. Now to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to create another folder in my views tree. Okay, so I'll go to here and I'll do add, where is it that I want to create that? Sorry. Add a new folder and I'll call this shop. Okay, and you'll see it drops down here in the hierarchy a little bit. And now what I want to do from shop is actually right click on there and do an add a view. And to save myself some code, I'm going to do a razor view and I'll just add that there. Okay, and then we're going to be presented with this. So we have seen something similar to this before in the past. But in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this name to index. Okay, that's the first thing I'm going to do. Then I want to look at my template. Okay, so a couple of times what I've said is that I want to get a list. I want to present a list to the shoppers. And you can even see here on line 21 to list. So I'm going to go to here and I'm going to select a list. Okay, and then the model class. Okay, and that one there is going to be our application DB context snapshot. Okay, models snapshot. It's basically the one at the very top. Okay, and to select that. And then our data context class is the same as always. Okay, the application DB context for Georgian groceries data. Okay, and now I'm going to go in and just add that. Okay. I actually got an error there, which is okay, because my challenge is that I actually picked the wrong one. Okay, so I should have actually picked my category. Okay, because you can see it right here. I'm saying, hey, categories, go to the categories right here and get my list. And I had selected the wrong model class. Okay, so let's give that another try. So this gives us an HTML table with a list of categories. Okay, so that's what this does for us right now. Okay, and you can see our header and then the content in there. So let's go back out and have a look. Okay, so I'm going to refresh this because I want to make sure that I save it. Okay, I'm going to go back, refresh that. Hit shop here, and that looks like the dog's breakfast. Okay, that's not a very good user experience. Okay, so let's go back in and start changing a couple of things. First and foremost, do I want it really to say index? That's going to scare your shoppers away. Okay, so let's go to here and let's do something better than this. I'm going to change this to have a look in here for all of your I'm just going to go with food. Okay, that's all I got. It's almost 10 o'clock at night. I'm pretty tired. Okay, and let's go to this here. I don't need to see index here either. So let's go choose a food category. Wow, I'm a marketing genius. Okay. And all of this stuff here, everything here, I'm going to take it out because it's horrible. Okay, and I'm going to pause the video, type in some stuff, and that's what we're going to go with. Okay, so I have gone to home. I got shop here. This is what my new view looks like. Okay, I've got these two card views, and I want to highlight the URL. Okay, it sends me to shop. Okay, I am considered an anonymous user right now because I'm not logged in. Okay, and it's taking me to this page. Choose any category. Okay, so one last thing, because we're done with this for tonight, but one last thing I want to let you know we're going to do next time is when I go to register, it says use another service to register. So that's if you want to register with, say, Facebook, or you want to register with Google, something like that. We're going to connect those APIs to this. And so you don't have to come up with a new one. You can actually use a third-party service to log into your actual account. Okay. So I'm pretty tired. I don't know about you guys. I'm pretty wiped out. And I hope that you got something out of this video today, because we're going to keep using this. We're going to have to keep these considerations in the background of our mind when we keep going forward, okay? So with that, I'm going to sign off and wish you guys luck, and we'll talk to you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.